against a Soviet lupus-inducing assassination tool. But at the same time, of course, at the time, Peter Wright and some other people in MI5 suspected that there was actually a highly placed mole in MI5, which would have meant the Soviets had been tipped, and so they knew not to use that again, at least nowhere near Europe.
Other than Wilson?
Yeah.
Like a Soviet mole other than Wilson, high up in...
Oh, yeah, the MI5 mole, yeah, that's outside. That's outside of Parliament.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an MI5, yeah. That's
so
a whole other
basically the
story.
Soviets were just running the UK government at that time, is what that allegation basically says, right? I mean, they had Wilson, who was the prime minister, and they had like a high level in the MI5. So
yeah. Although the allegations against Wilson, I've got to say, are pretty sketchy compared to the allegations against. And we'll talk more someday about the mole in MI5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting story in and of itself, but I don't want to talk about that now. Of course, it could have been that they had no intention of... It wasn't about getting Wilson into place. They just wanted to get rid of Hugh Gaitskell to begin with because he was kind of an outlier for the Labour Party. He was a much more conservative, almost Reagan-esque kind of guy. Didn't believe in nationalization, which put him at odds with labor unions and such. Maybe the labor unions wanted to get rid of him. Maybe they did it.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know. Labor unions tend to be better at organizing strikes and stuff like that than actually coming up with ways of inducing lupus. But yeah, you can see where they might have thought that Gaitskell was not the ideal guy to have at the head of the Labour Party if they won the next election. So maybe it was that. It wasn't so much for Wilson as just getting rid of Gaitskell. All right, so that's about it for the evidence against Wilson. So does that put him in the clear? I mean, I agree it's not super solid. And you'll hear it stated in many places that MI5 investigated Wilson and totally cleared him. That's not true.
Well, but like I said before, they had been investigating him for 20 or 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple times they would open a new file on him and investigate him for whatever reason. So when the claim is said that he was found to be clear, it could be in the first time and the second time, but maybe not the third time. When you read that, I think that might be part of why people say he was cleared.
Or they cleared him every time, but they kept reopening it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And the last one just never was closed.
Yeah, but it's, in a lot of these cases, it's really rare that they, investigate somebody. I shouldn't say it's really rare, but it's very rare that they totally clear somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because it's really hard to, especially when there's this many little fragments of evidence against him. I mean, obviously, it's not overwhelming by any means, but you can't prove a negative either.
Yeah.
I'd have to say the case is far from proven. Very likely he was not a mole, based on what I've seen. So we should give him the benefit of the doubt. So in other words, that theory, the theory that he was forced to resign by MI5, probably bogus. Probably bogus. But at the same time, I don't know what I don't know. I mean, maybe the MI5 did sit him down and show him the dossier and explain the facts of life.
Yeah.
And maybe they did give him a choice between leaving quietly or being forced out of office in disgrace. So my pros in this theory is it's pretty juicy. I like it. So anyway, I can't think of any cons. Can you?
Against this theory?
Yeah.
Okay. None other than the ones that I've said multiple times.
Yeah, I was going to say, you
Yeah.
just listed a bunch of cons and then said, here's your one pro.
My one pro is it's juicy. I like it.
It's juicy. It's fun. Yeah. You're editing like the Daily Mail now.
I know. Yeah, I think, unless it's always possible. I mean, I kind of doubt it. I think most likely it was just the pressure that got to him, and he just got sick of the whole thing, and that's why he resigned.
I agree.
I don't think MI5 forced him out. I mean, it doesn't appear to me. Again, they might have some juicy stuff on him that I'm not aware of too. Maybe they did, and that's certainly what they would have done. They would have totally avoided a scandal for sure. If they had caught him in flagrante, passing information to the Soviets, they totally would have kept it quiet. But that's about it. But there's absolutely nothing to prove that. So I think we got to go with the obvious, which is that he just got sick of being prime minister.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original theory.
Yeah.
Which is that he just got tired and said, I don't really want to do this again. This kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Not really interested in it.
I think so. There's always that statement of his wife that they didn't move into 10 Downing because they knew they weren't going to be there very long. It sounds to me like he maybe made her a promise that, hey, just a couple more years and I'm out, okay, please?
Yeah.
Or the fact that he barely won the seat may have been an indication to him that things could very easily turn yet again on him.
Yeah, go out in a high note.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
I know, yeah.
I guess for me, I just have that continuing doubt of like, why would you not, why would it be then? Why would you not leave before then? But, I don't know, maybe he thought he was prime minister for 6 years. Things had gone away, he would kind of be able to take a graceful exit of just, he would take a step down and then continue to take steps down into retirement, and then suddenly he found himself as prime minister.
Caught unawares in an election.
Okay, I guess I'm doing this again for a little bit. But
yeah, what the hell?
But again, I just don't totally understand why you wouldn't just say you were stepping down for personal reasons.
Yeah, I mean, he probably maybe should have given a reason, but maybe
even one.
Maybe it was a little unheard of at that time to have to give a reason. It's only because of all the other stuff that we consider it so very strange.
True.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I think typically, even then, you probably were expected to give a hint of a reason. But it might have been that he just decided to pull an Andy Kaufman and leave a mystery for us all.
Totally.
Could have been.
That's what I plan to do. I'm gonna.
Harold Wilson's last joke.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's it. I hope you found this episode illuminating and edifying, as did all of us, I'm sure. And I promise I'm not going to do any Cold War Soviet espionage episodes for a while.
We appreciate it.
I do have one in the cooker for you, but that's okay. I can hold off on it for a while. Do you guys have any other theories before I do all the housework?
Nope.
All right. Well, good news. We now have a website. Our website is called thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, and where you can, of course, find our stuff, download it, or can you download from there or just listen? Yeah, I thought you could. Okay.
You can download and stream.
Yeah. You can also download and listen at iTunes. Of course, if you go to iTunes, subscribe, please, and give us a rating and a review. And you can stream us from all over the place, and also, of course, Google Play. And we're on this thing called social media. I hear that's big.
It's pretty big.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
This thing.
Yeah, this thing. We're on the Facebook. We have a group and a page.
So, both, yeah.
Yeah, join the group.
We're big time.
Yeah, the bigger the better. And we're also, of course, on the Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways without the G.
We're big time there too.
Oh, huge.
We are.
Yeah,
we're huge there.
We have got 3 followers or something.
Bigly.
Yeah. What else? We're on the Reddit, where we have a subreddit. Yeah, on Reddit. Yeah. So our subreddit, of course, is called Thinking Sideways. And last of all, we've got an email address. You've heard of email, I hope. It's kind of a new thing. Our email address is...
Press these little slashes into a clay tablet.
Yeah. I do the tiny little message that I clip to the pigeon. But our email is Thinking Sideways.
Because you won't carry the clay tablet.
Yeah, well, not very far.
Pigeon.
Come on, pigeon. Whip crap. What is that? Thinking Sideways Podcast at gmail.com. And, of course, if you want to support the show, there's lots of ways to do it. You can just stuff an envelope full of cash and send it to my address. That's, okay. No? Okay. You can buy merchandise. There's shirts, mugs, stickers. And if you go to the Zazzle and Redbubble stores, we have those links on our website on the right-hand side. You'll see them right there. And, of course, we are on PayPal. If you feel like tossing some money our way, that'd be awesome. And lastly, we are on Patreon, which is sort of an ongoing, continuing, sustaining kind of thing. It's Patreon, Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/Thinking Sideways, you can pledge a certain amount, and of course every time we drop an episode, then your pledged amount goes over into our account. So you probably don't want to be pledging $50 or $100.
Or maybe you do.
If you're stinking rich, feel free. But just be aware that's going to be every week.
Yep.
So no $100 donations unless you can really afford it. And of course it's all optional, but we do appreciate it. Hey, well, that's it for this week, I suppose. So Das Vidonia.
You did that one last time.
Good point.
You can't do that two in a row.
Oh, okay. Aloha.
No. Aloha?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Does any of this?
Good point. I'm out of here.
Ciao.
Cheers, guys. Thinking Sideways is not supported by Badgers on Balloons. Instead, it's supported by the generous donations of our listeners on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/thinkingsideways to learn more. And thanks.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi there. Welcome again to another episode of Thinking Sideways.
2 in a week.
Yeah, this is the second one this week. So bonus episode.
Happy Thursday.
I know. Yeah.
It's a bonus on Thursday.
Yeah, as you all know, we're doing Thinking Sideways Most Wanted. The episodes you all have been asking us about for years now. This is one of the ones
we've been too lazy to do, basically.
Yeah.
Lazy?
Yeah, this is one.
This is like shocking. I was surprised that this wasn't the
number one.
Number one.
Yeah.
Well, it is the tie for the first runner-up.
Yeah, it is.
You mean second place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, second place.
But yeah, definitely, we've gotten a lot of emails about this one for the past couple of years, and
even just this week.
Yeah, I know.
Many of them.
Yeah, I admit it's kind of a cool little mystery, but well, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? Oh, by the way, I totally forgot to introduce myself and my lovely co-hosts. I'm Joe, joined as always by
Steve
and Devin.
Okay.
You met us earlier this week.
Yeah, you know,
why you wouldn't know us now.
I probably don't need to really be saying that, but yeah, they know us by now. But let's get on with our mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, this took place almost 100 years ago on a farm in Bavaria. Which is located near the village of Wangen in Bavaria, of course. It was part of a farmstead called Kaifek, and I'm not sure exactly how that got that name. And then the farm was called Hinterkaifeck. For some reason, that means Hinter means behind.
So we're behind the town?
They were behind the Kaifek? I don't know.
Well, German is a language that concatenates. So
that was a big word, Steve.
Yeah.
You know what concatenate is, right?
No.
It's something you use in Excel. It's the name of a formula.
That's why.
Yeah, but concatenate, it's something you do with languages where you literally merge the two words together.
You can just shove two words together in a
or shove 20 words together to make the town name that is so long it doesn't fit on one road sign. Like these things happen.
Yeah,
okay. That's how it got the name.
Yeah, there's some long words in German. Yeah. No doubt about that. Anyway, back to our story. This farm was inhabited by the Gruber family, which was fairly well known in the area. I'll give you their names. Andreas Gruber was 63. His wife, Kazilia, was 72. Their daughter, Victoria Gabrielle, was 35. She had two kids, Kazilia, 7, and Joseph, who was 2. And they also had a maid, Maria Baumgartner, 44. Victoria was a widow. Her husband, Carl Gabriel, was killed in 1914 in World War I, although there's been a little contention about that. Carl's family, by the way, was from the area. He was from a neighboring farm.
Weird, it's like that's how you met people back then.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because, the internet wasn't a thing.
What?
Yeah, there was no OkCupid. Yeah, you just had to make do with a very tiny pool.
How did people get by?
OK Village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andreas Gruber was the head of the family, of course, and he was actually not that well liked.
Not at all.
Yeah, he was an unfriendly loner kind of guy. He beat his wife on a regular basis. Also abused his children, and he was also very highly suspected of committing incest with his daughter Victoria.
Also cool.
Yeah, I know, a great guy. And in fact, in 1915, both Andreas and Victoria were tried and convicted for incest, and they both went off to the pokey for a while.
She got a really short sentence.
She only got a month, and he got a year. And I don't think they were allowed to share the same cell.
I'm just distressed that she was also convicted for that. She was like, oh yeah, Dad, let's do, I don't know.
Well, she was an adult though. She would have been like 28.
At
27,
that time.
28 in 1915.
But his wife was 9 years older than him and was still getting beat up by him. I mean,
yeah.
His wife Kazilia, was she Kazilia, right?
Kazilia.
Was that his first wife or his second wife? Because I swore I read somewhere it was his second wife, but I could be making that up.
I don't know. That's a good question. I ought to know that, but I don't. But he probably, quite often in those days, You'd have a wife, she'd die in childbirth, and then you'd get another wife. Yep. You know, it happened a lot.
You went down to the wife store and picked up a new one. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
But I know where Devin's coming from with the why is Victoria in trouble for this, because typically this is the kind of behavior that starts very early on.
Yeah, I know.
It's early behavior, and it's not necessarily voluntary behavior.
Correct.
Yeah.
At least not in the beginning, and later on you don't know any better. And it may be a case of she didn't know any better.
Yeah, this could have been going on.
But that's not the point here. Let's get away from this subject.
Sorry.
Back to
I played Devin.
I don't really like talking about incest anyway, although we'll talk about it a little bit more anyway. But let's see, Andreas, besides being abusive, was also a control freak, and and this might have been because of sexual jealousy over Victoria, or maybe because he was a control freak, or a combination thereof. But he told Victoria that she was forbidden to marry again, and he kept her on a short leash. And in general, the family was kind of sullen and reclusive, and just not that well liked. Victoria's reputation was a little better because she sang in the church choir. She had a good voice, apparently. Although, however, she was also kind of promiscuous, and back in those days, that you'd think that
really frowned on.
Well, case in point, right? In 1922, she had a 2-year-old, despite the fact that her husband died in 1914. So let's just point that math out. Real quick.
Oh yeah.
Just that seems important.
And there was some question about who the father of the kid was, if it was her dad Andreas, or if it was a neighbor, or several other men from around the town who claimed to have had relations with her. Yeah. Well, anyway, back to our little mystery here. At the farm, things started getting kind of strange in 1921. Their maid suddenly quit her job and left.
Not Maria.
No, her name was not Maria. When asked why she suddenly decided to leave, the maid said that she'd been hearing strange voices and noises in and around the house, and sounds of footsteps from the attic. And she was convinced that the house was haunted, and so she quit.
Yeah.
And
smart.
The Grubers chalked it up to mental illness, but the source of all this was the Grubers themselves. So it may be that they were asked about it, they made this up, and maybe the real reason she left was because Andreas Gruber was abusive towards her.
Yeah.
Or perhaps
coming on to her.
Or perhaps she got wind of the incest, and that kind of turned her off, and she decided to leave.
Yeah.
It's hard to say if that stuff about the maid thinking the place was haunted.
Because our source is him.
The group, yeah.
But it also seems like that's a weird thing to say about why she left. Like, if you get to make up whatever story you want, why wouldn't you just say, like, she wanted to go to a warmer climate?
Because wait, no, I hate to say this, but I'm gonna put us into the mindset of a very controlling man in the 1920s. Women are hysterical. It's a common thing to say that woman is hysterical, meaning she's mentally unstable, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, no, you're right. That women are."
Yeah, then you just say, I don't know, she was crazy. I don't know why she left. You don't say like, I don't know, our house is haunted.
Yeah. That could be.
People also always volunteer too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Especially when they're lying, as it turns out.
Yeah. And the Grubers actually could have been telling the truth.
Yeah.
Maybe she really was just mentally ill and then really thought the house was haunted. Or maybe the house really was haunted. I don't know.
Probably not.
And so about 6 months later, things kind of got stranger.
This is after the maid left?
Yeah, just 6 months after she left. This was in March 1922. Andreas was outside after a snowstorm, and he found some footprints in the snow that originated in the forest and came across their property and right up to the house. And he searched all around. He circled the house and the barn and everything, and could not find tracks going back to the woods.
Yeah. I heard in one account, that the footprints originated at the forest, not coming from the forest, just appeared as though they'd been dropped on the edge of the forest. I thought that was a fun little addition to the story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some of this stuff, apparently, he did talk about some of his neighbors about some of this stuff. At first, I was like a little bit skeptical of some of this, but I think that apparently a lot of this did happen. Of course, there's been a lot of absurd stuff also inserted into the story, as usual.
And that's I'm really desperately trying not to be the wet blanket on this one today. Yeah. I've actually been kind of a wet blanket on the entire Most Wanted list.
Yeah. We all have. There's a reason we haven't done them yet.
Well, so at this point, he did the next obvious thing, which is he searched the house, and he also searched the barn and the tool shed. Didn't find any signs of an intruder.
But also no more footprints.
No more footprints, yeah. Okay. And so a night, I don't know if it was that night or sometime shortly thereafter, he woke up to strange noises coming from the attic. He grabs a lantern and heads up there and searches the attic. Found nobody hiding there, nothing going on. So it seemed like if there was a trespasser, he had vanished. Well, what the noises from the attic were probably squirrels. I don't know.
Critters.
It could have been critters, rats, squirrels, whatever. And then a few mornings after that, Andreas found a newspaper from Munich on his porch. Nobody in the family had bought this newspaper or read this newspaper.
So they told him.
Yeah. In some accounts, he found the newspaper at the edge of the forest again, too, also. But, yeah, apparently the newspaper, again, was something I took with a grain of salt, but apparently it was actually true. He asked the local postman if anybody in the village had ever received this newspaper, and the postman said no. Did not recognize him.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another creepy thing, Victoria noticed a strange man standing at the edge of the forest watching the farm. Later, Andreas also noticed a man in the woods watching the farm. Yeah, kind of creepy. And then March 30th, 1922, a set of keys to the house disappeared. They had two sets of keys, apparently. And then he again repeated this to one of his neighbors. I can't remember which one. This was all discovered later by the police when they interviewed everybody in the area. When he was searching the farm for the keys, because obviously they could have been dropped anywhere in the barnyard or the barn or wherever. So he found that the lock to the tool shed was all scratched up, as if somebody had tried to jimmy it or pick it. Yeah, and I've been told that Andreas told most of this stuff to his neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer, although I'm not sure if that was true. It appeared to me that he and Schlittenbauer were not actually on great terms.
But you don't have to necessarily be on great terms with somebody to
talk to him when you walk by him.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Especially when weird hinky stuff is happening around the house.
You're in a
especially maybe it's that Andreas was suspicious of his neighbor. You know, every once in a while, if you're suspicious of somebody, you'll do that, like, hey,
hey, by the way, I noticed some strange stuff going on.
I noticed some weird stuff going on.
Yeah, it could be. You wouldn't happen to see the set of keys, would you?
No, I mean, that's the sort of thing suspicious people do sometimes, where they say, like, hey, it's the weirdest thing. This thing happened.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of, like texting your boyfriend. I just think it's funny that, right?
Yeah.
No? You don't? Okay. You don't text your boyfriend that thing?
Nope.
Yeah.
Never have.
Cool.
Yeah, me neither.
That's why you're married now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, back to their story here. So the neighbor Schlittenbauer, just as an aside here, one of the reasons things weren't all that great is that Schlittenbauer had been courting Andreas' daughter, Victoria, and I don't know how far that went. Victoria actually said that Schlittenbauer was the father of their daughter, of the young 2-year-old Joseph. Although everybody in town believed that Joseph was actually fathered by Andreas, but And Schlittenbauer actually denied it. He accepted it first, then denied it, and of course, when he offered to marry her, Andreas forbade the whole thing, and very emphatically, and so that's why things weren't so hot between them. But again, I don't know exactly how deep the hostility was.
Sure.
Okay, so that was March 30th when the keys were lost. On March 31st, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived to replace the one that had left 6 months earlier.
That house must have been filthy.
Yeah, I know.
For raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, talk about bad timing.
For real.
Yeah, seriously. She arrived just a few hours really before the unpleasantness began. Yeah, the next day was a Saturday, and Kazilia, the 7-year-old girl, Victoria's daughter, didn't show up for school. So apparently they had 6 days of school back in those days. Then on Sunday, the family didn't show up for church. Then on Monday, April 3rd, Kazilia again didn't show up for school, and also the postman noticed that nobody was collecting the mail. So, what happened? So Schlittenbauer, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor, he got wind of some of this stuff because it's a small town and people are all talking.
Yep.
And so he sent his 2 sons by the farm to check on the family. That was on Tuesday, April 4th. They came back and said they'd walked around the farm and hadn't seen the family and hadn't seen anything really out of place. And then later on, Schlittenbauer rounded up a few more people and went over to check the place out himself. And they did a more thorough search and went inside the barn.
Like opened a door or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe his sons didn't feel like it was really proper for them to open go into the barn or into the house.
Here's the problem that I have with the sons went over, and then later on, a whole troop of people from the village go over.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually the police are going to come. You've got gads of people marching around this place in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's...
Yeah.
It's like that's one of the things that makes it unsolved.
That definitely hinders the whole thing, doesn't it? Anyway, so in the barn they found 4 bodies. It was Andreas, his wife Kazilia, daughter Victoria, granddaughter Kazilia. Had all been bludgeoned and hacked to death with a pickaxe. Mm-hmm. Although the murder weapon wasn't there, all they knew is that there were these 4 bloody, battered bodies.
Some more bloody than others.
With square holes in their heads.
Yeah, and then their faces, in some cases their jaws broken and faces all torn up and stuff. And they had all been covered with hay, stacked on top of each other. Not sure why. They then went into the farmhouse and found young Joseph, 2 years old, dead in his cot in his mother's bedroom, and the new maid Maria was also found dead in her bed, and they had been covered also. The maid with a bedsheet, and Joseph with one of his mother's skirts.
Yeah.
So whoever did it covered the bodies. And it appears that granddaughter Kazilia didn't immediately die from her bludgeoning. The autopsy revealed that she probably had lived 2 to 4 hours after getting her head injuries, because she pulled wads of hair out of her head. Because she was probably laying there, who knows? I mean, maybe she was paralyzed, or partially paralyzed from, getting blows to the head. And you're sitting there, and you're sort of laying there helpless next to the dead bodies of your grandparents and your mother. That'd be a stressful situation.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking she might have. I mean, I'm not even thinking that she maybe did it on purpose, but you're trying to move. If you're in a kind of a semi-paralytic state like that, you're trying to move and you're grasping, and you're like, oh, I feel something. I can tell I've got a hold of something. And
hard.
Pulling on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it gives way, and then there was something there. Let me go back for it, not being able to see what you're grabbing.
In a lot of the accounts that I read, there was some suspicion that she was not the last to have been hit, that she didn't die, but that she perhaps witnessed the murders of her family
laying there
members.
Watching it all.
Yeah, that they thought she was dead and she wasn't, and so she witnessed it all, and it's a fairly typical traumatic response, is the pulling out of hair and...
Yeah, they don't know actually what order they were the 4 in the barn were killed in. So it could have been maybe Kazilia went out there first, or maybe Victoria and Kazilia went out there first, and then.
Well, they do suspect, right? It was one at a time, though, don't they?
Well, yeah, but there's no way to really know that. It could have been a couple of them at first.
I think the only way to know that is the lack of sign of struggle, right?
Yeah.
It didn't appear that anybody fought back, so you would assume that it was one at a time.
Yeah, probably. They couldn't tell, but somebody goes out to the barn, and then they don't come back, and then
so somebody else
goes out to check on them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't come back. Mm-hmm. You'd think after the 3rd or 4th time, people would sort of smarten up and take a gun with them when they go out there.
Well, but they stopped going after the 4th one.
Yeah.
There weren't that many of them.
Yeah.
So that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. It was a very vicious killing.
Yeah.
So Schlittenbauer sent his sons to go get the police. I don't know how far they had to go to find the police. I don't know if they had to go down to the village or to one of the larger villages nearby or what. But they had, on their way, everybody they ran into, they told them what had happened over at Hinterkaifeck. And so...
This is a weird comparison, but you know that scene in Love Actually?
Yeah.
Have you seen Love Actually?
Yeah, I have.
The one, right, where he finally goes to propose to the girl and she's not at the house and they all walk through the village. And by the end of it, it's just like thousands of people standing there. I'm trying to lighten the situation here, you guys. Come on.
Yeah.
God.
Is that a John Cusack movie? Sorry, it doesn't matter.
Hugh Grant.
It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hugh Grant, but a lot of people, yeah.
Lots of people.
It was Hugh Grant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's
and Keira Knightley.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, word gets all around, all over the village. So everybody from the village, like you said, comes up to the farm and tramples everything in sight. Eventually, the police arrived, and they started doing the usual thing, taking pictures, and,
Did they actually take pictures?
Yeah, there were pictures.
No, they took pictures, but they didn't draw a layout of the barn or the crime scene or anything.
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't
That's
the most.
They didn't
they didn't really draw a layout of that.
It wasn't the best investigation.
I don't think in terms of gathering fingerprints they did a real bang-up job either.
No.
They did search it pretty thoroughly. They even used K-9 units, and they didn't find the murder weapon. Yeah. And they eventually, at one point, the Munich police were brought in because obviously they were the big players.
Yep.
And as far as I know, this might even still be an open case. But they've questioned.
It is.
Yeah, they've questioned a lot of suspects, and the most recent one was in 1986. So they're still on the case, well, though obviously not pursuing it quite as hard, I'm sure.
There was a police force class that looked into it.
They've done, it's one of those cases they use every now and again.
Yeah, there was one that was not so long ago where they
That was like 2007, I think. Yeah.
And they finally said, no, it's unsolvable.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Stop trying to solve it, it's unsolvable.
But the report's interesting. Of course, I don't read German, so I had to use Google Translate. And it was,
so there were lots of muffins involved.
Yeah, it came out a little garbly.
Yeah, I read that one too. It's difficult.
Yeah. So back to the police at the time, they finally concluded that some person or persons had lured them out one by one into the barn, or again, maybe they just waited out there for people to show up. It's a farm. People are going to go out to the barn. Yeah, and so they were either lured or they just waited until they showed up and then murdered them with a pickaxe. At which case the murderer or murderers went to the farmhouse to finish off the baby and the maid. It was believed that Victoria and Kazilia had been the first to arrive, most likely, because they had not been dressed for bed when they went out to investigate, and apparently the grandparents were. Most likely they were just, and then the grandparents went out later on to check on what was going on.
Because they still hadn't come back.
Yeah. Date of death was determined to be Friday, March 31st. But when police questioned the neighbors, some of the neighbors said that they had seen smoke coming out of the chimney of the house over the entire weekend, which would suggest that somebody had been home. And somebody was home, 6 dead bodies. But, when they looked at the house, there was evidence that somebody had recently eaten meals. One of the beds appeared to have been slept in, but I'm not sure. Maybe not. In the smokehouse, they found a ham that had been freshly cut. In addition, all the cattle and livestock had been fed and were in good condition. The cows had been milked. And in fact, none of the animals on the farm had been harmed in any way, not even the dog. The dog was tied up in the barn and barking and was obviously not in the best of spirits, but was otherwise in good shape. So the guy wasn't an animal killer anyway. We got to hand him that. Other creepy evidence. So this is really creepy. They found evidence that somebody had been staying in the hayloft in the barn because they found, or at least a day or two probably before the murders, because they found 2 deep depressions in the hay where it appeared that 2 people had been sleeping. And a roof tile on the roof of the barn had been moved aside so that they could peer out apparently and surveil the farmhouse and the barnyard.
That's kind of creepy.
So it's real creepy. There might have been somebody staying in the hayloft for 2 or 3, who knows how long, before the murders, watching those people. And on another curious side, I don't know if this was related at all to it. Victoria had emptied her bank account a few weeks previously, and when they were searching the house, the police found a large amount of cash. And what's interesting is that the murderer was in the house for days, and if he was there to rob them, then he would have been searching the house and he would have found that cash. But the cash was still there. Yeah. So obviously the motive for the murder was not robbery. This is when the police started to suspect that the murders had been a crime of passion, considering the violence of the whole thing, considering they were able to rule out robbery. Suspicion fell, of course, on the neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenberger. Lorenz Schlittenbauer. I keep wanting to say Schlittenberger.
Yeah.
Schlittenbauer. I know. Yeah. Because, as I said before, he'd been a suitor of Victoria's, and Andreas had forbidden the marriage. And, of course, Laurent had heard all the rumors that Andreas was really the father of the 2-year-old Joseph. And that probably, if he had serious feelings for Victoria, obviously, that would have probably kind of grated on him a little bit.
Well, I don't know that he probably had serious feelings for her, but regardless, I think it probably would have been a weird thing.
Real weird. I mean, at Christmas time, here's Dad, and he's,
Yeah, no, it's weird.
No. Sorry, I was about to start jokes. We're not going to go there.
Yeah. So, as I said, Victoria claimed that Joseph was Schlittenbauer's son, but It's not really a given. So the motive might have been jealousy. It could also have been to escape child support payments, because apparently Victoria had been on the verge of suing Schlittenbauer for child support right before the murders. So, that could have been a trigger for the murder. I mean, having to support a kid that's not even yours.
Yeah.
Or that you don't believe is yours.
Yeah, that would be kind of galling. Yeah. Some of the other evidence of his involvement was he was one of the members of the original search party. It was reported when he was in the barn, the dog, which was also tied up in the barn, barked and snarled at him the whole time he was there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, but there's some people the dogs just don't like.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if your owner didn't like you when he was alive.
That's true. I really think that Schlittenbauer didn't think it through very carefully if he left the dog alive, because obviously you come back, the dog's going to have that reaction to you if you killed everybody right in front of the dog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was not smart to leave the dog alive. Anyway, it's not dispositive one way or the other. But another one of the guys who was there with the search party said that he seemed kind of cold-blooded about the whole thing. I mean, they're looking at these horribly murdered bodies, bloody bodies, and he just unstacked the bodies and didn't show any sign of revulsion or disgust or anything like that. He just calmly unstacked them. And somebody said, "Why are you moving the corpses before the police even are here?" And he said he needed to find his boy. So apparently he thought his son, Joseph, was somewhere in that stack of bodies.
Do we know if he served in World War I?
Schlittenbauer?
Yeah.
Seems like he would have. He would have been the right age.
Yeah, he would have been the right age.
He would have been the right age. I was just thinking, okay, well...
It could be that, he was pretty inured to blood.
Yeah,
blood
and plus, anybody that's worked on a farm for any extended amount of time, which this guy has, you're used to dealing with death. Dead animal, roll it over, cut it up, do whatever.
Yeah, pull its guts out.
That's why his reaction doesn't strike me as A, the serving in the war, and B, dealing with dead things.
Plus,
he didn't give a crap for the old man on the farm anyway.
Yeah, pretty much, people also said he seemed to be really familiar with the farm.
He lived near it.
Yeah, but they said he just navigated around so super easy. But I don't know that really means much of anything. He did get Schlittenbauer did get questioned by the police, but in the end they just didn't have any evidence to really link him to the crime. In fact, nobody's been arrested for the crime to this day. A year later, actually, the Gabriels, that was Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband. Their family lived nearby, of course. They wound up buying the Hinterkaifeck farm for the really below market price.
Sure.
Because, obviously.
Weird, yeah.
Who wants to buy it and live in it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so in 1923 they bought it and they decided to demolish the whole thing. And when they demolished the barn, that's when they found the pickaxe. It was actually hidden under a false bottom in a hay rack. So they had a secret compartment in the barn that Schlittenbauer, I don't think, should have known about.
Well, nobody should have known that, right? I mean, unless
family members,
family members would have been the only anybody who lived there. Should, but that's weird.
So that's another mark in Schlittenbauer's favor, I think. They also found a penknife in that same compartment. Yeah. One final grisly note before we head on to our list of
so weird.
Yeah, they decided to cut the heads off the bodies and sent the heads to Munich for further analysis. I think also for communing with the psychic or something like that. And the headless bodies were buried in a grave in Weidhofen, which is I think somewhere to the west of the farm, and southwest, I think. The heads, of course, have gone missing, so there's another unsolved mystery. Yeah,
that whole World War II thing got in the way.
Weird.
Yeah. Munich was at the receiving end of a lot of bombing and stuff in World War II, so I guess that's not too surprising. So now let's move on to our list of suspects. You guys have any favorites?
I have some favorites because I find them hilarious.
Yeah. I don't have any favorites.
Yeah, I don't either, really. Schlittenbauer, of course, is everybody's favorite. The motives were jealousy and desire to get out of paying child support. But what I don't get about that is that, again, he wouldn't have known about that secret compartment in the barn. I don't think, anyway.
Well, I was about to say he might have.
He could have. I guess he could have, especially if he was copulating with Victoria.
I was just saying, if he was canoodling, that would explain why there's depressions in the hayloft and why that one tile is easy to move. Is she might, have tell a guy, hey, come over and go in the hayloft, and there's this one tile that you can look and watch for me to come out. But if you see my father coming, hide under the hay, kind of thing.
Yeah. So it could have. Yeah, there could be a non-sinister explanation for the thing in the hayloft, definitely. Yeah. But the thing I don't get about Schlittenbauer had been the killer, and he stayed in the house for days.
Wouldn't he have been noticed not in his own house?
Well, I think so. I think so. And also, why would he want to stay there? There's a bunch of corpses around.
Yeah, although they'd been covered up.
They'd been covered up, yeah. But you're right in the middle of a very incriminating scene.
Yeah.
And
if somebody happens to come by.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got a perfectly good home just right down the road to go to. So that's another reason I don't think it was Schlittenbauer.
I agree.
Yeah. But the rest of our suspects are kind of a thin list. We've got Carl Gabriel, Victoria's dead husband. Yeah, this is a big one. Of course, he was dead there in World War I, but there are claims that he didn't actually die in the war. And there was actually a witness who said that he'd seen Carl on a train in 1918. And Carl said that he had just been home and had seen Victoria. Apparently didn't talk to her, but he apparently saw her from a distance, saw that she was pregnant, and decided, well, I think I'm going to just leave town and go take on a new identity. Because obviously you see your wife and you've been gone for like 4+ years, and she's pregnant. Well, it's not something most of us really want to deal with.
That math doesn't
it kind of does.
follow, though.
It could work. I mean, Joseph was born July 9th, 1919, and so
okay.
So it could have, and also he could have been mistaken about the time. Maybe he saw him in early 1919 on a train, and not 1918. But
the problem with him
really
is that
18. Yeah.
The problem with it being Carl, though, is that the guys in his unit
saw him
step on a I think it was a landmine.
I've heard various things about that. Yeah, but I think
it was either an inbound
shell or a landmine.
And he was face up and his body was destroyed, but his face was pretty much intact. And
his skull was cracked. They could see his brain.
But it was definitely him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Carl did have a decent motive. I mean, if Carl had somehow survived,
not a bad motive, yeah.
Yeah, no, he had a pretty good motive. I mean, yeah.
But why come back all those years after you'd already figured out that your wife was fooling around?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know why. Maybe he just dwelled on it for a long time and finally just sort of went around the bend. So Carl, we got to take that with a grain of salt also. Next suspect was Andreas Gruber's brothers. He had 2 brothers.
Okay.
And apparently his sister confessed on her deathbed that her brothers had done it.
Why?
She was a little hazy on that.
She was on her deathbed and all?
Yeah.
Not a lot of time to give details?
Yeah. So, I mean, Maybe. I don't know. Again, it'd be... That
would be one hell of a family feud.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, talk about the McCoys and the...
the Hatfields.
Yeah, the McCoys and the Hatfields kind of situation.
Yeah, I don't. Again, it's evidence is so skimpy that I really can't say. But I really do have doubts about Schlittenbauer, though.
So that leaves us with some random nut job?
Yeah, a random nut job, and it would have to be a nut job.
Yeah.
Because obviously he wasn't motivated by money. I mean, he was perfectly happy to hang around and eat their food for a while, and sleep in a soft bed. But
not take their money.
But it could have been some sort of serial killer type. It's not like they haven't been out there for a long time.
Oh, yeah, it's not a new invention.
Not a new thing, yeah. So, although you'd still think if he was an itinerant serial killer that he would have taken the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? It's there.
Yeah, but...
You were creepy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, maybe a serial killer. I don't know. Anyway, that's about... You guys have any more theories?
I don't.
Yeah. No, I really don't either. This thing is probably one of the biggest murder mysteries in German history, if not the biggest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a serious thing.
And there's literally nothing.
There is the actual evidence and everything is skimpy.
Well, the case was totally mismanaged and badly investigated by the initial police.
Oh yeah.
No, they're not constables, are they?
Yeah, I don't even know if the local village even had a constable. I mean, I don't know if they had to go to one of the larger towns nearby to find a cop. I'm not sure.
At that day and age, I mean, as soon as you get the entire town trooping through, and people are rubberneckers.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to show up to look. The scene is destroyed.
As we saw last week with the solder kits.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's obviously never going to get solved. I mean, and you know this is a tough case if Team Sideways can't solve it.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I guess we did overlook one suspect.
Yeah, who's that?
Choopy.
Oh, that's right. Good point.
I don't know how you missed it.
Chupacabra does, we always find him in these snowy situations.
Yeah. All right, okay, I'll buy that. Okay.
Okay, we solved it.
Yeah, with the Chupacabra. All right, cool. Hey, so I'm going to give you a little information here, so don't shut us off quite yet. This is very, very important information. First of all, our website, ThinkingSidewayspodcast.com, where you can download episodes. You can look at links that we will be posting out there, talking about the whole Hinterkaifeck thing. And, of course, you can leave comments. Also, we're on iTunes, so you can download our episodes there. Also, please subscribe and leave a review, preferably a really good one. Stream us from anywhere. We're also on Facebook, where we have a page, and also a group. And also Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways. That's thinking, not thinking. And let's see, what else? You probably want to send us an email. Our email is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And last of all, you can find us on Patreon, Patreon/Thinking Sideways, where if you want to support the show, you can pledge a certain amount per episode. Of course, totally optional, but if you feel like doing that, then hey, Patreon's where to do it.